So what are the chances this actually works, and what could derail it?
The biggest risk of a derailment, of course, is from the Israelis. I mean, Netanyahu has been pushing the United States to go to war with Iran for more than 25 years. He finally got his wish, but it just didn't end up the way he thought it would. But he's not going to give up. And there's plenty of opportunities for the Israelis to derail this, particularly by restarting a war with Lebanon.
What's up, you guys? Welcome on in. This is the Dissident Debrief, and today we're going to be reacting to the most important conversation that you need to listen to regarding the Iran peace deal. If you watch one video, watch this video. It is with Dr. Trita Parsi talking with Tucker Carlson, and they discuss the trickiness regarding the Iran peace deal. Hopefully it goes through. Let's get on into it, and we'll talk about it.
At the end of the day, you just need a couple of successful attacks and, the whole thing can fall apart. So if Trump wants to keep this, and I hope he does, and I do think that he's serious, because as you pointed out, he needs to get out of this as well. It is not sufficient to just have an angry phone call with Netanyahu every once in a while, or to do so in reaction to Netanyahu actually violating some of the US's red lines. There needs to be consistent pressure on the Israelis to make sure that they don't do this. And I would go one step further. Part of the reason why the Israelis would do this is because they believe that if they restart the war, the US has no choice to re-enter the war on Israel's side. If the United States makes it very clear to the Israelis that that equation is over, if the Israelis start a war against not only a deal that Trump has struck, but what I think he hopes becomes part of his legacy, then the US is out.
And yeah, that's the really tricky part is in this whole quote unquote peace process, we've gone through this whole charade and theater, market manipulation, truth socials from Trump, and I think count is upwards of like 38 times. And every time that we get close to some type of ceasefire or deal, the Israelis are hell-bent on restarting the war. And I'm really hoping that this is more than just a political charade for this week. Honestly, we just got to get through this weekend. Hopefully there's a memorandum of understanding. And then even if that memorandum of understanding is signed, I think there's another 60 days where things could really go wrong. And where they would really go wrong is Israel doing something to try and drag the US back into a bigger conflict.
Israel is going to have to deal with the Iranians on their own, which I don't think they can do. Without all of the support of the US, particularly the defensive support in terms of shooting down Iranian missiles that are heading towards Israel, the Israelis cannot tolerate a war with Iran for very long. So if they know that they cannot drag the US in, their incentives for sabotaging the deal will also diminish, because the outcome that they're looking for is no longer secured in any way, shape, or form. So I think Trump has that ability, and I think proactively he should make it very clear. If Israel restarts another war with Iran, regardless of how it starts, the US is out.
And that's going to be really, really tough, because so far it's all been kind of political theater. I'm really hoping that it's not just political theater, but history has told us that it kind of has been. And will Trump have the gusto and the conviction and consistency, like Dr. Trita Parsi stated, to make a decision, telling Israel, we are not going to be dragged into a war with you. If you open up a new war front with Iran again, we're not supporting it. This could be very easy. However, Trump has taken a lot of money from the Israel lobby, specifically Miriam Adelson, and I don't know if Trump has the conviction to withstand the pressure of the Israeli lobby. Maybe he does. Yes, we'll see. That's what I hope.
What do you think the chances are the United States would allow Israel to lose a war against Iran? I'm just going to say 0.
All depends. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. We've seen it so far that the US, there will be a tremendous amount of pressure domestically to support it. But I think also things are changing. I mean, right now, the standing of Israel has plummeted amongst the American public in almost every demographic, except for boomer Republicans that watch
Genocide
Fox News.
hurts your reputation.
It does. Well,
Yeah.
who would have thought, right? And also, I think on the Republican side or the conservative side, I think it's become very clear, particularly to the younger demographics there, that Israel is a key factor as to why the United States has been involved in so many different wars.
Yeah, the numbers, I can't remember if it's people under 40 or under 55. Basically, if you're under 55, whether you're left or right, you don't necessarily, the numbers have really changed a lot, and people under 40 or under 50 are not in support of Israel. But if you are older than that age, you might be relying on cable news, and you have different opinions where you are in support of Israel's actions.
And since
A key factor in the decline of the United States.
And since so many of these young folks have completely turned against these endless wars, etc., it's always been a bit of an issue, I think, for some of the younger Republicans in the sense of being against the forever wars, being against overextended the United States, all of these bases around the world, while at the same time trying to stay neutral or positive on Israel. And that cognitive dissonance worked for a while. It doesn't work any longer because it's just so crystal clear.
I've experienced it firsthand for many years. Yeah, you don't want to fight about Israel. People are hysterical, totally hysterical and ruthless. It's just not worth it.
Mhm.
But when you see it, that relationship destroying your country, I mean, you have to say something.
Yeah. And again, it's going to take a while before that really impacts the politics of this. But I think it's going to become increasingly clear. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the midterm elections, both on the Republican and the Democratic side on this issue. It will still take a couple of more years, and it will be a couple of more years needed in order to produce foreign policy thinkers on both sides of the aisle that have broken free.
Say that one election that was a little bit discouraging was Thomas Massey losing his primary seat, and that the fact that Thomas Massey, one of the most beloved Republicans, at least for a while, true America first, he was able to lose his primary election because of the amount of money that was poured into his election supporting his opponent, Ed Galrain, and you look at the numbers, who normally votes in primary, it's usually older people, and those older people, older Republicans, are usually just in full support of Trump and whatever he says. And that is a big part of why Thomas Massey lost, is because Trump put his thumb on the scale.
From this conventional thinking about what the U.S.'s role in the world should be, what the U.S.'s role in the Middle East should be, and what the U.S.'s relationship, not just with Israel, but any type of a special relationship, whether those should be kept or not.
I don't understand what Netanyahu's plan is. What's Israel's plan? So they want to keep the war going. Okay, so what does victory look like?
This is a really good point, because everyone else is looking at this. Every other country is like, okay, what's the win here?
Yeah.
The win is the establishment of the Greater Israel Project, that map that Bibi has always referred to, the Greater Israel Project, and full domination over the Middle East.
And
best case, how does this turn out?
Exactly. And I think on the Israeli side, there's just been a transition to a completely different type of a security thinking. This happened a long time ago, but it's just become more blatant. I remember it was actually David Ivri, the legendary Air Force general in Israel, who was actually the lead pilot that struck the Osirak reactors in Iraq in 1981, who explained this to me. He said, look, on the Israeli side, all of the countries, they define a threat as being a combination of intent and capability. On the Israeli side, we assume that intent to destroy us is always there. So we only focus on capability, which means that regardless of whether a country is disposed negatively towards Israel or not, Israel's only way of surviving in the region is to always outgun everyone in the region and every other combination of countries in the region, keeping them weak, keeping them at a much lower level.
That's deranged.
It's military hegemony on crack.
And by the way, it's also that worldview that, like, everyone hates us by definition. That's just not true.
It's not true.
people's view of you is determined mostly by your behavior. Okay, that's just a
Absolutely.
fact of life that applies not just to Israel, but to you and me and every other living person. But if you go into any scenario, if you go to a cocktail party imagining everyone at the party wants to kill you,
Yeah, you're not going to have a good time.
you're crazy.
Israel's that person at the bar, always looking for a fight. And they do live in a rough neighborhood, but they don't act like a normal country because they have the full backing of the United States military.
That's crazy.
So look, there's been an experience that they've had that I think has contributed to it. I agree with you that I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's good. And also, historically, I don't think we can see any examples of any country, particularly a small country, being able to pursue that doctrine successfully for a very long time.
Right.
It's not a good survival strategy. Now, they think it is the only way to survive. But what this has done, and this goes back to your earlier question, I remember speaking to another Israeli military official. This is 2004. So this is 22 years ago. And he was very worried about Israel's future. He said that when I fought in 67, when I fought in 73, we genuinely believed that if we won this war against the Arabs would eventually realize they cannot defeat us militarily, so they will have to sue for peace. So the military victory, the best case scenario, as you asked, was a transition to peace. But he said to me, I look at the Israeli youth now, 2004, 22 years ago, and I don't see any belief in peace.
Before Dr. Trita Parsi goes on to say that in Israel, the younger generation, instead of getting more like progressive or open, they have become further to the right or further hardline. Even the moderates in Israel are not happy with Bibi because, from their perspective, he's not going hard enough. And the polls have really shifted for Trump as well in Israel. Now they're writing all sorts of articles of how Trump betrayed them, sold them out. And now all of the quote unquote MAGA deciders like Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, they're having an absolute meltdown on their podcast. It's somewhat entertaining to watch, but also infuriating.
Believe that we're going to be in constant warfare all the time and that this is just normal. That there is no such thing as a victory. You just have to constantly fight. And that's the only way for Israel to survive. And he said that this worries me because this is not sustainable and this is going to change Israeli society in a profound and very negative way. And I think he was proven absolutely right.
But it's
so when it comes to your question of what is Netanyahu looking for, he thinks that Israel is going to always be in an endless state of war. And as a result, you just constantly have to fight that battle and make sure that you have the tactical advantage.
But baked into that assumption is endless, literally limitless American support.
That's the thing. This is all presuming, because Israel could never do this without this constant support,
not for
resources, from the United States. So they've structured their entire approach based on the idea that, the U.S. is some sort of a cash cow or intelligence cow or weapons cow that will just constantly end up giving. And that is one of the most important things that has now changed in the last 5 or so years and will change even further. So this is a strategy that simply does not work.
So
and that's the reason why Bibi publicly is stating that he wants Israel to draw down on aid to zero, but in reality, they want to reduce their quote unquote aid that they get, and then what they're doing now is trying to push forward a new section within the Defense Authorization Act where it almost merges the United States government and Israel in a special defense act, almost similar to our partnership with NATO.
I think it's important to understand other people's perspective. It's essential. We didn't understand Iran's perspective going into this and we lost. So it's important to understand Israel's perspective going forward. Unconditional American support for Israel's regional projects is the centerpiece of their security strategy. Like they can't exist as a nation without that support. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And they know that. And that means that anyone who threatens that is what wouldn't you do? It's literally an existential problem if somebody threatens that.
Yeah. And this is part of the reason why they're so aggressive against anyone who questions that relationship. And again, you can question that relationship. I would, for instance, never argue in favor of having a negative relationship between the United States and Israel, or between the United States or Saudi Arabia. I want the United States to have a sound and healthy relationship with as many countries as possible. But this is not sound. This is not healthy. And I would say a lot of this is also our own fault. At the end of the day,
Well, it's all our own fault.
when we're giving endless support without questioning, without any restraint on it, it actually fuels the worst instincts of any country. Israel is no exception in this.
Now, we care about supporting companies whose value.
And that's what I have for you guys today. Obviously, the United States-Israel relationship is a really complicated one. There's more than one reason of why our relationship is so tight with Israel, and why our Congress members have a unquestioning adherence and almost allegiance to supporting Israel. If you look at like the voting tracks on domestic policy, usually it's like gridlock 50-50, and then if it's a military bill that is going to foreign aid for whether it's Israel, whether it's Ukraine, it's almost unanimous. And a lot of that is donor money and various defense contractor money and the Israeli lobby. But it really is a dangerous relationship, and it's gone way too far. It does feel like we were occupied, and hopefully after this weekend, I guess we'll get another update. Hopefully it's not a just giant week-long charade like the previous Iran peace deals have been. But that's what I got for you today. Thanks for tuning in. Go ahead and give this video or consider giving this video a like, comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, or rather read your comments in the comment section down below. And with that, thank you for tuning in to the Dissident Debrief. See you in the next one.
Values